Welcome back. Now, a rise in student numbers has bolstered both AdvTech's and Stadio's earnings. AdvTech said the group was pleased to report double-digit enrollment growth in both the secondary and tertiary schooling divisions this year, while Stadio says it was on track to reach its pre-listing forecast of 56,000 students by 2026. Anthony Clark from Small Talk Daily Research joins us now for an analysis of AdvTech and Stadio results. Thank you so much for your time, Anthony. Let's actually start there with the student number growth in the private education space. And really, what AdvTech and Stadio produced is quite different from what we saw from Curo about a week ago. What exactly is this pointing to?
Yeah, good evening from a slightly chilly Cape Town. You make a very interesting point. The underlying learner growth, particularly in the schooling operations between AdvTech and Curo, are quite startling. In the Curo results, which came out a few weeks ago, they only had an 0.8% increase in learner numbers. And from the start of the year till now, they've actually gone backwards. Whereas in the schooling operation of AdvTech, they showed a 4% growth. Now, 4% may not sound like a great deal, but in a stagnant economy where we know consumers are struggling, to actually send your child to a private school and have a positive growth year on year, I think is extremely encouraging. And it makes me wonder, given that the AdvTech schools are seen to be slightly higher price points than Curo, why parents are going to AdvTech schools rather than Curo schools. It clearly is an issue that investors and analysts need to investigate going forward. But as you say, good results from Stadio and from AdvTech in today's year-end announcements.
It's really quite interesting because it's not just in South Africa where we are seeing growth in the higher priced schools, but AdvTech talking about their expansion into Africa as well, where we are seeing appetite for that. Are there any shifts that are noticeable in that African landscape that stand to benefit AdvTech in the long run?
Yeah, again, you make a very good point. When Jeff White, the new CEO of AdvTech, came in a year ago, I actually interviewed him on his first day of tenure. And he had a very specific mandate and strategy to actually expand AdvTech into Africa. They had a very strong presence in Kenya, and a transaction they did in Ethiopia last year, called Flipper, has really kicked their African growth. And year on year, if you include the acquisitions, their learner numbers were up 40%. So it shows you that AdvTech really sees good growth in Africa. I'm well aware they looked at buying a company in Morocco, but they were outbid by a private equity company. And there's certain other geographic territories in Africa, like Egypt and perhaps around the other East African lakes area, which again have very good growth going forward. And clearly AdvTech wants to use its good name and its existing platform in Africa to expand into those higher growth countries, given that South Africa is fairly stagnant.
And I know that, of course, one of the focal points in these companies is also capital expenditure and whether the balance sheet is actually strong enough to withstand this very, very long expansion runway. Would you say that that balance sheet is capable of handling such expansion in AdvTech, Anthony?
In the case of AdvTech and Stadio, the answer is a resounding yes.
Okay.
AdvTech is extremely cash generative. So despite the debts on the balance sheet, its balance sheet can be said to be not lazy, but it's comfortable, and it generates significant amount of cash. In Stadio's case, they sit on net cash of 132 million rand, and their ability to gear up to fund that expansion is actually quite easy. So I have no concerns regarding the AdvTech or Stadio balance sheet. Curo, on the other hand, is currently sitting on 3.5 billion rand of debt. Granted, it is manageable and they're well within covenants, but showing you that between the education stocks, regarding balance sheet strength from a level of debt, the best company currently is Stadio, the second best is AdvTech, and the third is Curo regarding their balance sheet leverage.
Well, let's actually drill into Stadio, and what was quite interesting is that we saw double-digit growth from the top to the bottom line. They called this performance impressive. Would you be in agreement?
Absolutely. Looking at all the free education companies in terms of results out in the last few weeks, we had Curo's earnings up 13%, AdvTech up 16% in terms of headline earnings per share, and Stadio today up 28%,
Wow.
with again good strong cash generation. And they were so upbeat they increased their dividend by 51% to 15.1 cents a share, showing you they have extreme confidence in their earnings abilities and of course their balance sheet to actually increase their dividend by 51%. So again, probably the most impressive results of the entire education sector year to date.
Yeah. And I mean, Stadio also operating in a stagnant economy, but have they done all they can to kind of boost their internal muscle to withstand this environment, but maybe also benefiting from some of the shortcomings of the macroeconomic environment and the government?
Yeah, I think that's again a good point. We all know that the government doesn't have money to invest a great deal, particularly in tertiary education. I can't even remember the last time a new university or college was actually built. And we all know that sadly UNISA is a shadow of its former self. And there are 350,000 learners in the UNISA campus. So going forward, I think the likes of an AdvTech tertiary and Stadio tertiary have significant runway regarding picking up learners. And there was a great statistic they published today in terms of Stadio, that over 500,000 learners in the country do not have access to university places because there simply isn't the space inside the current state system. So if those parents want their, their adolescent children to get a good tertiary education, if the state can't take them, they're going to have to pay to go into a private sector. So there's very, very good runway for growth inside the tertiary sector for both Stadio, which is basically online, and AdvTech, which is basically contact. So I see very good growth going ahead for both companies in the tertiary sector. And in Stadio's case, given it's very cash generative and needs very little capex for growth, Stadio is my main pick in the tertiary sector.
And would you say that right now the landscape, and I guess from what you're seeing from the financial metrics, that it is ripe for investor returns?
In terms of ranking, yes. Since the AGM season in mid-2024, my ranking table has been number 1 Stadio, number 2 AdvTech, number 3 Kuro. And on a year-to-date basis, looking at the data points, you would have done very well by following that metric. In fact, the top-performing stock in the last 12 months has been Stadio, followed by AdvTech, and Kuro year-to-date is down 31%, showing you how the market has derated that company, given the state of the balance sheet, weak learner growth, and concerns regarding write-downs in the Kuro schools. As it stands right now, Stadio would be my number 1 pick in the sector, and it's trading today at around R7 a share.
Well, we do have to wrap up the conversation there, but thank you so much for your time and for schooling us today on the private education sector on the JSE, Anthony. And do please keep warm in chilly Cape Town. That was Small Talk Daily Researchers Anthony Clark.